welcome to Principles and Practice of Procurement. Unit 2, Matching Supply with Demand, Section 6, Outsourcing. Sometimes, the inventory management and the forecasting techniques are not enough in matching demand with supply. Thus, in trying to match demand with supply, we look to other firms to help us meet our demand targets by giving them part of our non-core activities to do. By the end of this section, we should be able to define outsourcing, explain what can be outsourced, mention the drivers of outsourcing, explain the types of outsourcing, explain the benefits of outsourcing, and identify some problems with outsourcing. When we say outsourcing, what is it? Outsourcing is the management strategy by which major non-core activities of a firm are transferred to external specialist providers. Or simply put, it's a business practice in which an organization hires a third party that the organization used to perform in-house. So for instance, the core activity of UCC is teaching. However, in order to ensure teaching goes on smoothly, we need books. But then we realize that producing books or printing of books is not a core activity of UCC, but then we need these books for teaching to go on smoothly, which is our core activity at UCC. For this to be done, UCC contracts production of books to a third-party specialist, someone who specializes in book manufacturing, to produce books for us in order to cut costs. Remember we said earlier that activities we outsource used to be performed in-house, right? This means UCC used to produce the books. We used to produce the books ourselves. However, based on some reasons, probably because we want to concentrate on our core activities or because we incur more cost in producing the books ourselves, and we think it will be better or economical to outsource the book production to a specialist, or any other reason the firm identifies as a need to outsource the book production or our non-core activity to a third-party specialist. So here we are saying we notice some things. First, we can only outsource our non-core activities. So for instance, UCC cannot outsource their teaching activities because that is our core activity. That is why we are in business. We can only outsource our non-core activities. UCC, we have some non-core activities to be security, the cleaning services, book production. You can think of many others. Secondly, we only outsource activities that we used to produce in-house. We used to do these activities ourselves in-house. Thirdly, we outsource in order to cut costs and to improve quality. So assuming we incur a total of, let's say, 10,000 in producing the books ourselves, now that we are outsourcing, we expect to get a better deal. If we incur 10,000 in producing in-house and then we incur more than 10,000 when we outsource, then it makes sense that we produce the books ourselves, right? So we are outsourcing because we want to get better deals, we want to cut costs, we want to improve on quality, and a whole lot of other reasons, which we'll be seeing in the next slide. Now, what do we outsource? First and foremost, we outsource activities that are resource intensive. We realize some activities are resource intensive, and as such, it's not viable for the organization to take on such activities. So for instance, UCC, in producing our books, we buy high value materials, we employ specialists, we need electricity, water, materials, and a whole lot. We realize that a third-party specialist who has a larger market size would make good use of these resources, would use these resources efficiently and effectively more than UCC producing to satisfy just our students. This is because the third-party specialist is satisfying UCC students as well as satisfying other students, other markets. They don't use the materials or the A4 sheets, the papers they buy just for producing books. They have other things they use the papers for. After shredding the materials, instead of just disposing them, realize that the third-party specialist will have better use for those wastes. Also, because they are producing for a larger market, we take advantage of the economies of scale. that comes with producing in larger quantities. At the end of the day, we realize the third party specialist is using the resources efficiently than UCC, right? So we are saying we outsource activities that are resource intensive. Secondly, we outsource activities that are available from niche market suppliers with proven technology and skills. A niche market is a segment of a larger market that can be defined by its own unique needs, preferences, or identity. So we are saying that when activity is available from a niche market supplier or suppliers, then this activity has its unique needs and preferences, which we need to respect, which obviously makes sense that we outsource the activity to these specialists. So we don't end up doing anything anyhow. A niche market supplier will not only know the current industry trends, but will also be on top of knowing what the supply and demand looks like in the market and the effect it has on on a customer's business and the total talent needs, right? So they know all these things. It's them that will be able to give you the best solution to your problem. Thirdly, we have the relatively discrete with few interfaces and dependencies on complex supply chains. Here we are saying that some non-core activities are discrete and also has very few areas where information and physical goods are exchanged between the partners, between the buying organization and their suppliers. These activities also depend on complex supply chains. We have to go through a whole lot of processes before we can get hold of them, before we get suppliers for them, before we can even identify the activity. Getting information on them is a problem. Getting materials to perform the activity is a problem. You have to go through a whole lot of complex processes before we can finally get them. Then why it's going to waste our time. The time we're going to use to focus on our core activities, we're going to waste that time on performing this non-core activities, which is also going to come with extra cost. So we are saying that instead of wasting much resources and time performing these non-core activities, why don't you outsource it to third-party specialists who specializes in that particular activity? Next, we outsource activities that are subject to long-term fluctuating work patterns. The work patterns needed to perform some activities rarely change. Like it requires the same process every day in performing such an activity. Then we can outsource such activities because once we've already certified that a particular supplier can perform such activities with the current work patterns, then we can be certain that the supplier can continue in the long term providing the activity with the current work patterns compared to activities with short term fluctuating work patterns where almost every day new work patterns is coming up. Almost every day we need to closely monitor the suppliers to make sure they can adjust to the changing demands or the changing situations of the work. At all times, we need to develop these suppliers to make sure they're performing our activities or our duties for us effectively. Once the work patterns really change, we can award the contract to you, and it will take us a while before we visit that situation. Where if there's a need to develop you to meet the current demand or current change, then we do it. Or if there's a need to award the contract to a different supplier, in a case you are unable to meet or adapt to the new work pattern, then we do that. So saying that we can outsource activities which are subject to long-term fluctuating work patterns. We also can outsource activities that requires relatively little client-side management. Remember, our time is limited, resources limited, everything in the organization is limited. We can't outsource to a third-party specialist and also expect that at all points in time, we're going to keep close watch on you. We're going to be on your neck before you do the right thing. We're going to be on your neck at all times, offering training and a whole lot. We are outsourcing to you because we know and we think you are the specialist in the area, that you're the best person to do the job for us. Finally, we outsource activities where very clear contractual accountabilities can be established. What would drive an organization to outsource some of their non-core activities to third-party specialists? The first driver is quality. We already explained this earlier. We outsource to specialists because we think give us better quality at a reduced cost. When it's a third-party specialist taking care of the issue, we're going to record less defects in our processes and all that. This will also feed into our cost by reducing it drastically. So the next driver we have here is cost. So here we are saying that outsourcing to a third-party specialist is a solution organizations will use to reduce their cost of production, as this is compatible with the cost leadership strategy. By controlling and decreasing costs, the organization can increase its competitive position in the market and also record an increase in profit at the end of the financial period, right? The third driver is finance. Because the organization's funds are limited, we need to invest these funds into our core activities, our core businesses, in order to achieve our long-term organizational goals. We can't waste our funds on our non-core activities when we can have third-party specialists do it for us at a reduced cost, right? So you're saying we invest our finances into our core activities and outsource our non-core activities to third-party specialists. Our fourth driver is core business. We said earlier that one key reason why organizations outsource is so that they can concentrate resources on their core businesses or their core activities. This core activity is our primary activity. It's the main reason why we are in business today. It's the main reason why the primary reason why the organization is in existence. So we can't waste our time and resources on our non-core activities, which are just supporting activities. The non-core activities are supporting the primary activity. We outsource these supporting activities so that we can concentrate on our primary activity, which generates us revenue. Finally, we have cooperation as a driver of outsourcing. Sometimes when more than one organization is responsible for an activity, it breeds conflict. So in order to avoid such conflicts, we just outsource that activity to third-party specialists. That is it. Types of outsourcing. Body shop outsourcing. This outsourcing is used in a situation where management wants to meet their short-term requirements. So for instance, our core activity is producing umbrellas, right? So we are in the raining season and there is high demand for our umbrellas. We can't just employ additional people, permanent staff, to help us assemble these umbrella parts. When we do this, after the season is over, after the raining season, we're going to have a lot of redundant staff. Labor is going to be everywhere with no jobs to do, right? So you're saying that in such a situation, we outsource to meet our short-term requirements. And then after the period is over, the outsourcing is also over. We take our activity back. This is what we refer to as the body shop outsourcing. The second type of outsourcing is the project management outsourcing. Projects are temporal, right? They have beginning and an end. So project management outsourcing is a means an organization will use to gain extra sets of hands by having dedicated individuals to the project that the organization is currently working on. And right now that we know projects are temporal, that means after the project has been executed, then outsourcing is also done. The contract has been executed, so we say what? So there is contract closeout. The third type of outsourcing is the total outsourcing. This is when the outsourcing supplier is given full responsibility of the activity. So if it's books production that we are outsourcing, the supplier is responsible for everything. If it's security, we are outsourcing our security to third-party security experts. We're saying that you, the third-party expert, is responsible for our security. You are totally responsible for everything. You don't have a part in it. We are trusting you with everything. The benefits of outsourcing. One is to obtain immediate investments, which is recovered over the long term. Secondly, when we outsource, we're able to access an ICT infrastructure that's a state of the art. Definitely, the person we are outsourcing to is an expert in the field, so we expect them to have state of the art technology. Thirdly, we are saying reduced staffing levels achieved through efficiency and use of systems. The people that would have performed the activity we are now outsourcing, there is no need for the staff. So we have reduced level of staff. We're giving managers less job to do. in managing these staff. Fourth, we have freeing senior management time to concentrate on core businesses. Exactly. Now that we've outsourced our non-core activity, we have enough time to invest in our core activities, like we said earlier. And finally, higher levels of service performance, generating greater customer satisfaction. Problems of outsourcing. There is bound to be risk in an instance where the organization overdepends on a supplier. Where a supplier fails to deliver their commitment, we the organization will be in trouble. Because even though we outsource our non-core activities, which are support activities, these activities actually support our primary activities to give us a whole organization. Without these non-core activities, we can't survive. Even though the impact they will have on organization may be minimal. This being said, we need our suppliers to always fulfill their requirements or part of the contract, as there will be a problem if they fail to meet their part of the contract, they fail to supply their requirements. Cost escalation is the second problem of outsourcing. We have here some suppliers, after they realize they are the only people we are working with and that we are so dependent on them that they think without them we will be in trouble, start increasing their prices. We should know that this increase in price is not only due to inflation, but also to things like supply and demand, right? Lack of supplier flexibility is another problem we have in outsourcing. In supply chain, we need our suppliers to always be flexible because we are not always certain of customer demands. We are not always certain of some of the decisions we take. And in this case, where organizations operate in a highly dynamic environment, coupled with so many uncertainties, we need our suppliers to be able to responsive to our needs. If there is a change, if there's something we need them to change for us, they should be able to do it. They shouldn't be so rigid that we end up having problems in our organization because one supplier that we've outsourced to is not able to be flexible in order to respond or be responsive to our current needs. Another problem of outsourcing is the lack of management skills to control suppliers. Also, the unrealistic expectations of outsourcing providers due to overpromising at the negotiation stage. By way of summary, we defined outsourcing and explained some of the things that can be outsourced. We also mentioned some of the drivers of outsourcing. We have also explained the types of outsourcing as well as the benefits of outsourcing. We then identify some problems associated with outsourcing. Thank you.